For years, the steep slopes of the Allegheny Mountains disrupted the flow of early commerce through the region. Rugged terrain made the journey not only time-consuming, but dangerous. As a result, the Commonwealth was falling behind the efforts of neighboring states when it came to industrialized expansion. The birth of the Allegheny Portage Railroad allowed for the PA Mainline Canal system to finally overcome the formidable expanse of the mountain range. But with success comes ambition, and engineers for the Pennsylvania Railroad were already looking at ways to improve upon the path forward.
The Allegheny Portage Railroad was the final piece of the Pennsylvania Mainline Canal, and the reason that the state came up with this canal that went from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, almost 400 miles across the state, was because of what was happening in neighboring states. In New York, you have the Erie Canal that opened in the mid-1820s. You have the C&O Canal in Maryland. And people are choosing to travel through these other states because travel is much faster. The price of goods is lower. So Pennsylvania came up with this canal system because Philadelphia as a port city was being bypassed. Travel through the state took about 3 weeks by wagon. Once the Mainline Canal opened, you could now get across the state on an average of 5 days. So this was the fast new way to travel. It was seen as an engineering marvel for the way that they were able to conquer this formidable mountain barrier. And the Allegheny Portage Railroad was 36 miles over the mountains and connected two canal basins, one on the eastern side of the Allegheny Mountains in Hollidaysburg and Johnstown on the western side. And they used a series of 10 incline planes with stationary engines in an engine house building at the top of each of those incline planes. And the stationary engine was the power for pulling people and goods up over the Allegheny Mountains. It took about 6 hours to go the 36 miles over the mountain. And prior to the Allegheny Portage Railroad, there were Native American paths, narrow wagon paths through the area. But the railroad was not the first idea for crossing the Allegheny Mountains. The state did consider other options because railroads were in their infancy at that time. Canals were more established in America, so one of the ideas was to build a 4-mile long canal through the Allegheny Mountains. There were several problems with this. One was, how do you keep water in the canal? And another was how long it would take to build this. One estimate said it could take about 30 years. And there is a little bit of urgency because other parts of the Mainline Canal are being constructed, and we still haven't figured out how to cross the Allegheny Mountains. Without being able to cross the mountains, there's no direct route from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. Also considered was a wagon road over the mountains. With wagons, travel's very slow. With wagons and stagecoaches, you can only take so many people. You can only make so much money because you can only fit so many people. And it was very rugged travel. It was very uncomfortable. So the state came up with the inclined plane Allegheny Portage Railroad as the best option for moving people and goods over the mountains. So once the Allegheny Portage Railroad opened, and even though the Mainline Canal was this fast new way to travel, we're always thinking of even faster ways to travel. And only a few years after the Allegheny Portage Railroad opened, the state was already looking at options for bypassing the incline planes of the Allegheny Portage Railroad. And with the Pennsylvania Railroad and their completion of Horseshoe Curve, they were able to find that faster mode of transportation.
And in reference to Horseshoe Curve, this isn't the first time that a railroad was considered to be brought to the Horseshoe Curve's location. It was just a decade prior that the state was looking to bring their own new railroad there to bypass the use of the inclined plane system and the Portage Railroad. They wanted to bring a different idea rather than a horseshoe curve. They wanted to construct several tunnels and bridges through the mountains rather than wrap the railroad around the mountain ridges instead. That plan kept getting pushed back, and it never gained any traction, and hence the Pennsylvania Railroad jumped on the opportunity and came out with the idea of the Horseshoe Curve.
J. Edgar Thompson, who was sent out to survey for the Pennsylvania Railroad 1850-1851, he surveyed the best route possible for a railroad to go through the mountains. And he decided that the present site of the Horseshoe Curve would be the best site for the railroad to go through, which meant the track would have to go through the farmlands here at the base of the mountain, which was owned by the Robertson family. So the Pennsylvania Railroad came in, they purchased the farmland from the family, and there they started laying down the track. But they also, around that same time, 1853, 1854, they started building the original, the first shop complex, which was really a quarter roundhouse with some buildings attached to the side of it. It was nothing too grand, but it was just enough to bring in steam locomotives, a place to rest before going up the mountain, a place to rest after coming down the mountain, as well as a place to do any repair work needed for steam locomotives at that time.
They would have been belt-driven equipment. It totally would have been stationary steam engines to drive those belt-driven pieces of machinery. You would have seen a blacksmith shop, so just your basic foundry, forging those pieces of equipment, basically making repairs to existing pieces. So the likelihood of actually producing new parts for locomotives and rolling stock would have probably been unlikely. They would have sourced those from Baldwin Locomotive Works or other builders and would have brought those parts here to Altoona for assembly, and you would have seen those parts taken off of locomotives and cars and repaired here. And around that time, within the first 5 years, they would have employed about 1,000 workers. And really in the 1800s, there wasn't a lot of innovation in terms of developing new technologies. It was keeping running what they had and being able to get from point A to point B. So that was the primary focus, was the physical plant. So when you talk about innovation at that time, historically speaking, when you think of innovation, you think of motive power and equipment. But in the 1860s through the 1880s, the real primary focus was innovation through civil engineering, such as the development of the Horseshoe Curve, conquering those landmass and being able to get a route established. And then really it wasn't until after the Civil War that the expansion really took off here in Altoona.